I'm Bonnie. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Today, again, we are excited to have another guest joining us. So with us today on Tarot with Bonnie and Peter is Joanna Powell Colbert. Now, Joanna is many things. She is the creator of tarot decks, which include, obviously, a deck that I have used and talked about numerous times on this podcast, the Gaian Tarot. But she's also the creator of the Pentimento Tarot, and she's the co-creator of the Herbcrafter's Tarot. She's a retreat leader. She's a teacher. She is a writer. Actually, her musings on Substack, if you haven't read them, are something not to be missed. She is a strong advocate and a retreat host for earth-centered spirituality, of the sacred feminine, and of using the tarot as a tool for inner guidance and self-exploration. Now, inner guidance and self-exploration is a direct quote from her website, and it is a sentiment that Bonnie and I have paraphrased here time and time and time again as a way to approach the tarot. I will say her highly recommended Gaian Tarot is being re-released basically as we speak in the next few days with a revised and updated book. A journey that you can actually follow on her social media platform and on her website, and that we will talk about today. Joanna, welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Can you tell I'm excited to have you?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with both of you.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
We're so excited to have you. And I'm going to say, I did wear red today to sort of represent Earth element, and you're wearing some red too.
So I just, it's almost Beltane and it's Earth Day and it's like time for flowery things to wear. And yeah, definitely.
I know.
Yes.
So I'm really happy.
I have flowers on my earrings. You can't see
perfect.
them.
I'm really happy to meet Bonnie for the first time. And Peter, I was trying to remember when I first met you, and I'm not sure if it was at a reader studio or if it was at the retreat, the Gaian Tarot retreat that James Wells and Bev Haskins did back in 2011.
It was probably at the Reader Studio because it was 2010, because I know that's when Kelly purchased the deck for me, and it has been my constant companion ever since. And then from there, it was kind of finding your work and really connecting with your work through James, who, is probably responsible for half of the things that, I've done in the tarot. And then, through at least one retreat, and possibly might have even been a second one, but, definitely the one retreat, I think it was in Ancaster here in the weekend retreat was oh my goodness. And that's been a while. So it has been a while since we have connected. Yeah. But we're connecting here again. Yay.
Yay.
Oh, I know we're connecting through the web. And hopefully one day I would love to meet you in person, Joanna. So if you're ever doing anything in this area, I would definitely be interested in coming to that. So
thank you.
We would love, Peter might know this, but I don't, and maybe many of our listeners don't, but we love to ask people how they found the tarot or how tarot found them. So if you wouldn't mind maybe letting us know your journey of how you started working with the tarot, and then maybe incorporating the relationship with tarot and nature, because you do that so beautifully in your work.
Sure. Thank you. So Peter, you might appreciate this as a teacher. So the very first time that I ever heard of the tarot was in a advanced placement high school English class, and we were studying The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot. Remember Madame Sosotris and her wicked pack of cards? Like that line from The Wasteland lit me up, and I was like, what is this? And I kind of went down a pathway into learning more about it. But that was the first time I ever heard of tarot. And then when I went away to university, there was, and so this is we're talking 1968, 69, and going away to college. One of my dorm mates had the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So this was probably 1970. And she let me look at it, but she wouldn't let me touch it because we had all those rules back then, or those superstitions. And I was so fascinated. I drove, I think, 50 miles to some metaphysical bookstore to get a copy and brought it back. And so I started playing with it. And back then, it's like, I think I had Eden Gray's guidebook. And I think I may have bought the A.E. Waite Pictorial Key to the Tarot, which was so difficult to even understand. But I was just so fascinated with the cards. And so I would be in my dorm room just playing with them and using the little white book and trying to figure out what all these things meant. And the thing is that almost every spread or reading that I did for 9 months, the Nine of Swords kept turning up. And I couldn't figure it out because I was a pretty sheltered, privileged 18-year-old. And I just could not figure out what this card was because it's obviously about nightmares and grief and sorrow. And it just made no sense to me. And I couldn't figure it out. And then that summer of 1970, one of my friends from high school was killed in a freak accident. And at the end of the summer, my high school boyfriend was killed by a drunk driver. Oh. And so that was like the first time in my life that I really ever experienced trauma. And it threw me into a place of searching for the meaning of life and death in a really deep way. And then I got so spooked by the Nine of Swords having turned, because I felt like, oh my gosh, it was like telling me that this is coming. And it spooked me and scared me. And I pushed the cards away and I didn't touch them. And after about a year of searching, I ended up as a born-again Christian. And so I was going to UC Irvine, which is in a very conservative part of California. And I often think that if I had been in Berkeley or Santa Cruz or one of the other campuses, I would have ended up as a Mooney or something like that, because I just wanted somebody to tell me, this is the answer. We have the answer. And we have a community, and come on in. So anyway, I ended up spending about 10 years in that space and in a fundamentalist church. And part of what they told us to do was get rid of anything that was demonic, right? So I don't remember if I actually burned that first. I really wish I still had that first deck I bought in 1970, right? But I got rid of it. So put it away. We were like gone. All that stuff was gone. And it's another story for another time how I came out of the church. But when I did come out in the early 80s, I was living in the Bay Area, and the Mother Peace deck had just come out. And there was a woman that I worked with who, her tarot mentor, she also played with the cards, and her tarot mentor was creating, like back then, what they were calling the first photographic deck, which I don't think was ever published. But her friend was getting friends of hers, getting costumes, setting scenes up, and taking photos. So she was creating her own deck. Mm-hmm. And so from the very beginning, when I came back into my tarot studies, the idea of you can make your own deck was like there from the very beginning. So I really started studying pretty deeply in the early 80s. And I found Rachel Pollack's books, went to workshops with Vicki Noble and Karen Vogel in Berkeley. And then Mary's book came out, right? Tarot for Yourself, I think, came out in 1985. And I actually still have my copy that's torn up and scribbled in and everything. So I kind of never looked back from there. Yeah.
It's amazing how the same people, we had Mary Greer on as guest, and I think she was talking around the same time frame. It was around the 1960s when she was in university. Eden Gray's book came up as well. All the same.
And she drove. So same. Somebody had a deck, and she hopped in some rickety car that had holes in the floor.
There you go.
Her chariot story, right? Her fool's journey.
Funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's how, and I think it's why we try and phrase the question sometimes about, how did you find the tarot, or how did the tarot find you? Because in some cases, there's almost that, that calling that says, where are you coming from? And then the mother piece, I can imagine that, the sort of goddess type energy, even just the circle structure of that deck in and of
Right.
itself, with
Right.
no corners, no place to get lost in it anyways. Yeah, it really is a very, and it would have been a very unique deck at that time too. So
It was, and that's kind of what I kind of came into nature spirituality and goddess spirituality after I left the church, and that was where I've like stayed pretty much ever since.
mm-hmm.
And so that deck was really important to me at that time in my life. And I think I didn't answer part of your question, Bonnie, which was, so fast forward a couple of decades later, and I had often thought, I had been doing a lot of goddess art and was being published in small different publications. And what I've always been really interested in is I've always like grabbed people that I knew and had them model for me, because I loved the idea of them taking on an archetype or taking on the divine being, and then how does that particular energy kind of shine through like the everyday person. And I thought about creating a deck, and I was just like, 78 cards, that's just way too many. I can't do that. And so I just was it was on my shelf as that might be a fun thing to do. And anyway, and so in the late 90s, then I moved to a small island, and the nature spirituality just learning directly from the earth, studying native plants, studying the birds, gardening, that just became my main spiritual practice, even more than tarot, more than astrology, more than anything else. That was it. And living in a very rural place. And then I was the guest artist at a pagan gathering, a festival, I think in Chicago in 2000. And Janet Barris came up to me, and Janet Barris started the International Tarot Society way back when, which no longer exists, but she had been putting on conferences back then. And she came up to my vending table and just said to me, "You have to create a tarot deck." And she had on this beautiful sequined t-shirt, High Priestess t-shirt, and I just kind of felt like I had been given my marching orders. But I wasn't sure exactly what the topic should be until I was out wandering around the island one day on one of my walks, and I just went, oh, if I can bring together my enthusiasm and love for nature and the natural world and everything I've been learning from all my wilderness awareness teachers and all that kind of thing, and put them together with tarot, that would make me really happy. So that's where that came from.
I love that. And that was going to be a question I was going to ask you. Like, when was that moment that you realized the natural world is meant to be in dialogue with tarot? So thank you for that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's,
thank you.
No, I won't belabor the fact of how much I enjoy and connect with this deck. But one of the things I find about the Gaian Tarot is that there's a subtext to every card that in many ways, however you interpret it, could also be, a little, oh yeah, and go outside.
That's right.
Right. Like, and I can't remember if it was you who had mentioned that, or if I'd heard that before, if I just discovered that, with myself. It's like, you're looking at a card and you're going, oh yeah, and go and connect with nature, and go and do something outside, and go and do something outside. It's, it just has a magical quality. Doesn't even properly describe it, but it's about the best word that I can come up with, and even call it earth-based magic, nature-based magic. It really is a tool that says to you, wherever you happen to be, that, we kind of come from this outside earth-based space. And it's one of the things I find that this deck does so well, is it helps you, even if you're in a city of 5 million people, it really does help you connect with, it helps you connect with nature, just through what it is. Even the fact that, you've got little pieces of things poking out from every card. It's almost like nature is trying to find the person that's there. So anyways, I
love that, Peter. Thank you. Yeah.
No. I have reflected on this deck many, many, many times. It has been, between the original guide that you wrote and between the cards, I probably know them as well as, if not better than, the Rider-Waite, the
That's
Rider-Waite Smith.
fantastic.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No,
Were
no,
you going to
go.
ask a question? Because
No,
I was
but
going
we're
to
gonna.
like piggyback off
I
of you.
know, but we're gonna do that Canadian, kind of Chip and Dale thing. No, please, no. After you. No. By all means, after you. No, Bonnie, you go ahead.
Okay. You sparked another question that I wanted to ask, but I forgot about. So what would you recommend, Joanna, if like I do love to be out in nature. I love water. Like I'm very connected to water. So like being by the lake or, by the ocean, if that's possible. But I have a really hard time going outside because I spend so much time inside. So how would you recommend then like a practice for maybe using the Gaian Tarot to be like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going to help me to go outside more and connect more with nature rather than just be like, well, I'm, needing some nurturing. I'm going to go take a bath as opposed to going outside and being in nature. Does that make sense?
Sure. So I have a practice that I call going on a wild wander that I learned from some of my nature spirituality mentors. And I shared it with Carolyn Cushing some years ago, and she kind of tweaked it and calls it going on a wisdom wander. So you could use either word, but for me, it's like when you go for a walk, there's different ways to go for a walk. You might go just for exercise, and the point is how far can you go and how fast and that kind of thing, or talking with friends or whatever, or observing, just going out to see what's going on in the natural world and seeing how many different things you can notice. But for me, a wild wander is I'm going to set my intention just to be in dialogue with the natural world and to learn and to give. And so I used to teach this when I did retreats. You cross an imaginary or a literal threshold. So like if you step off your, I'm looking at my porch over here. So if you step off the porch onto the path, that could be a threshold. Or if you step over a log or something like that, and you say to yourself, I'm now in sacred time. And so during the time and until you come back, and when you come back, you would step over a threshold and know that you're back. So it makes this container of time, and you have rules. So you keep quiet. You don't talk to any other humans. You might talk to dogs that you encounter, but you don't talk, and you don't eat, and you don't enter a human habitation. So you like to start out with, Bonnie, you might give yourself 10 minutes. And later on, you're going to find that an hour is not long enough to do this. Because when you quiet yourself down like that, you're just kind of, I'm going to see what there is to see. And you let yourself be allured by a nature being. So maybe a tree or a bush or a plant, and just spend some time looking at it and really looking at it and engaging with it and feeling its energy, and not even necessarily asking for a message, but just being in relationship with it. I don't know if this is too woo-woo or not, but yeah.
I love this.
I just wanted to say that the twist that Carolyn put on it, which I really love, is that she has you pull a card before you go out on the wild wander or the wisdom wander. And then the card becomes like your guide. And you're contemplating the qualities and the messages and the energy of that card while you're on your wander too. So she'll often like take a picture of her card, like out in nature somewhere, set it up on a bush or a flower or something like that. And so she's been teaching that a long time too. So you might think of it as like a mini vacation in your day, in a way, kind of. I don't know. Is that helpful?
It's 100% helpful. I think for me, it's like if I'm not sitting at my desk working, I'm like wasting time. and I think that's what prevents me. Like when the nicer weather is starting to come, so we're lucky about that. So I'll sit outside and I'll eat my lunch. And usually when I'm eating, I'm very like not distracted with other things because I want to be, with my food.
Sure.
But the going outside, I think it's kind of like meditation. I teach meditation, and it's almost that like when you do those practices and what you're suggesting to go out in nature and just be in community with that. And, that's going to give you so much more than that time sitting at your desk or trying to get other things done, because that's going to replenish you and
Yeah.
you'll have so much more clarity. So I absolutely love that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to credit you. I'm going to think about you every time I, pass the
Good.
threshold. And my husband loves to be outside and walk. He's always like, want to go for a walk? I'm like, So maybe that's something we can do together and not talk. So that'll be a good, I love that. Thank you.
He's going to be okay with that. He's going to go, hey, I'm going to go, Steve. We're
Me
going
not
for,
talking.
we're going
Yeah,
for a
he'll
walk.
be like, okay.
Oh, okay. He'll be okay. But because when I remember this, and perhaps it was an activity like this in the Ancaster retreat in 2011, there was definitely, because I specifically remember the threshold itself. There was a large tree, and I have a hard time remembering what I did last week. But, this happened 14 years ago, and I can actually remember the kind of small wooded area in the back and a very large tree that sat in behind the retreat center, because I think we were there 2 days. And we needed to walk in silence. And I believe we had a journal as well to write down anything that we had come up with. And I distinctly remember the power of crossing that threshold, because it's almost like you're walking, and maybe the idea is, okay, well, this is just a little bit too woo-woo for me. But then the physical, when you make you identify and say, oh, this is where the threshold is going to be for me, there's real power in crossing that. It is almost like you've defined the barrier for sacred space, and then you've entered it, and your mind is entering it as well, because you've set that intention of saying, this is the barrier. So, Bonnie, I can't, that the idea of finding a threshold and going over it is a very, very powerful, to the point that, this happened 14 years ago, and I still remember the power of that. And we'll use it from time to time when I go, because Bonnie and I are fortunate. We're about 15 or 20 minutes away from each other physically, but we live surrounded by just beautiful nature. We have hikes and trails, and we have, forests. We're everywhere. We have hundreds and hundreds of, I'll speak American for a sec, miles of trails here. And some, you'll have those spaces where you're like, I've crossed into, it almost feels like I've crossed into another world. So and that kind of alludes to when I talk about the idea of the deck. It's like, I know, and maybe I'm just picturing this myself, because there is always an object, or even sometimes two objects, that cross the threshold of the frame of the deck in the Gaian Tarot, that you have, there's a piece of, whether it's, a small animal or it's a branch, that seems to invite us to enter into the card. So I sometimes think about that concept of threshold, because the workshop and the deck, kind of were almost hand in hand for me. So anyways, that was a lot of talking on my part. I do want to ask, though, if I can, because I've mentioned the deck several times, and I know it is being re-released, and at least that the guidebook itself is being revised. I would love for those people, and if you're a longtime listeners, there's no way you're not familiar with the Gaian Tarot, but you may be discovering us for the first time or recently. Can you talk a little bit about either the deck itself or about the revision of, process of the book, or even both?
Sure. So the deck has had a number of different editions and publishers. I self-published in the beginning, way back when, and a couple of other publishers picked it up, and I was just really thrilled that Red Feather, Mind, Body, Spirit, which is an imprint of Schiffer, wants to keep it in print, which just makes me incredibly happy. So they approached me about a year ago and asked about doing a new version. So I actually have it right here in front of me. So this is the new version. They decided to put the seeker on the cover, which I really love. And so it's pretty. It's got the book.
Beautiful.
I don't mean for this to be a hard sell here, but it is really beautiful.
No,
we're
beautiful.
So excited.
Yeah. So I'm pretty thrilled with it. And, for me, I started creating this deck in 2000, not long after Jan Barris gave me my marching orders. And it took me like about it took me 9 years because I'm a very slow worker to finish it. And it's been in print since 20. So I started it when I was like 58 years old. I'm 73 now. So I feel like this is a huge part of the legacy that I have to leave. And it's a huge part of my life's work. After it was published in 2010, it opened up a whole new world to me in terms of having an audience around the world. And I've been able to create a livelihood, a modest livelihood, because of the audience for this deck, which is wonderful. So the way that I work is colored pencil, and it's very, very slow. And I'm not going to say laborious, but if I had known then what I know now, I probably would not have chosen to do a deck in colored pencil just because it's so small. I mean, so long. It takes so long to do it. So I didn't redo any of the artwork for the cards last year because I just didn't have time. And there's a few I have to tell you, there's a deer walking by. I love that.
Beautiful.
Anyway, I didn't redo any of the art, although there's a few cards I would do over if I had more time to do that. But I did take the opportunity to revise the book. And I'm really, really happy that I did, because I think that some of the writing, I feel like it didn't age well, as we kind of grew up and learned new things. And the olders learned from the youngers learned from the olders, but I learned a lot from the younger people in my life. And so I worked with a friend of mine who is Gen X to my boomer status. And she used to be an editor with Cornell University Press. So she really helped me kind of see where I was being, I was unconsciously racist, or I was unconsciously this or that, and to kind of just bring things up to date. So I feel really happy about that. And one of the things that I did is I no longer have an affection for affirmations. So in the book, there's an affirmation for every single card. And also some of them, I didn't like them anymore. And so I decided I was originally going to turn the affirmations into blessings, because in workshops and retreats that I've done, I've taught people, you pull a card, and then I teach them how to distill the potent meaning for that moment, and then put it into a blessing, and then partner up with people, and each person blesses the other person with the blessing that they wrote themselves. And I've just seen it be such a beautiful thing.
Oh my goodness.
I was talking to some friends about it, and all of them, I think, had come out of, like I did, came out of kind of toxic religious backgrounds. And they were all, we don't like blessings. I was like, what? What do you mean you don't like blessings? And they were like, we just don't like them. Don't want to be blessed. And I'm like, okay. So it's like I went home and I really thought about it, because these are three people that I'm close to, and I respect them and their opinions. And so I really thought about it. And then I'm like, you know what? We're going to do these pithy wisdom statements instead. And I kind of was inspired by Ellen Laurenti Prince's Dark Goddess Tarot. Was every single card at the very top, there's just like one short sentence that sums up the card. And when Letitia Guthrie and I did the Herbcrafters, I said, we need to do pithy wisdom statements. And so every Herbcrafters card starts with but 3. Letitia wrote 3 for each card. So I ended up feeling that that's what I would like to do instead, and just have like this wisdom statement, but have each one begin with remember. So for example, for the seeker, right? I don't remember what it was in the book that you have now, but the new one I wrote is, remember, begin your journey with a light heart and an open mind. So if it's an affirmation, it's like, I begin my journey with a light heart and an open mind. Right. It's kind of like you're trying to talk yourself into it in a way. And a blessing would be, may you begin your journey with a light heart and an open mind, which I still think is quite lovely. But when you say remember, begin your journey with a light heart and an open mind. I'm telling you, you remember you have that in you. You already know that. You already have all the wisdom inside you. You just need to be reminded of it from time to time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's
beautiful.
I know. My heart is overflowing right now.
Aw.
Oh,
Aw, thank
that's
you.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like it
And-
places the agency in the person that's doing the work, as opposed
Exactly.
to, you know, that a
Exactly.
direction that's coming from something. It's like, remember that word
Yeah.
alone is, this is something you
Yeah.
need to do. Choose to do it or not, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I had some experiences. It was pretty interesting. So this was like a year and a half ago, rereading the book from start to finish, which I hadn't done in a very long time. Because most people take the guidebook and they open it to the page they need and that's it. And so I'm reading it over. And so I wrote this at 60 something, my younger self. I think like 60 is young at this point, right? And
It is.
I think it is.
totally. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I just don't agree with this at all. It's like the counsel that I'm saying, the card, when you get the card in the reading and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I got to update that, so that felt really good. And over the years, like I used to have an online group called Gaian Tarot Circle that was teleseminars. And we would gather twice a month and we went through the deck. And I just began to notice how much I was learning from the students about the deck. And they would say, I see this in it. And I'm like, I had no idea, And so one thing that happened is that the teacher card, which maybe I've got it. Do I have it here?
Yeah.
I drew this as a elder man, but I noticed how many people were referring to the figure as she. And at first I wanted to correct them. And then I'm like, well, no, that they've seen it as a she, that's who it should be. And so I realized that this figure is really very androgynous or non-binary, to use a phrase that I didn't know when I started doing this years ago. And so in the new book, it's they, them. So I changed the pronouns on a few of the figures to they, them, to honor that.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And yeah, as soon as you said the teacher card, I knew exactly.
Me too.
Knew exactly which one it was. So
Yeah.
And I resonate so much with that card because in numerology, I'm a 5 life path. And when I look at that through tarot, it's the Hierophant, which is, I would imagine that's the teacher, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that. And I can't see myself as that male elderly man. So.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, there was a book. I think it might be Cassandra Snow's Queering the Tarot that I had read.
Oh, maybe.
And they talk about having a real challenging relationship with the Hierophant card and constructed, we're working with, I think, and again, I think they work with the Urban Tarot in their book, but also talked about what they appreciated about that is kind of moving away from that
exactly.
Orthodox religion, exactly that idea of Hierophant as opposed to teacher. One of the things, and I think most people listening, that my background is both in teaching and educational leadership. So to connect to a card called the teacher was huge. I can remember actually having conversations with Bev Haskins about that very card, but the very card in that deck and the connections to it. I'll put my hand on my heart mentioning the name, but yeah.
Can I ask you, Joanna? I love your I was very afraid of the tarot, and like you, I got a tarot deck very early in life, and then it kind of freaked me out and I didn't use it. Fast forward many years later, tarot, it was calling me, and it was like, okay, I need to understand what tarot is. But I approached it from this idea of healing, right? Like what can these cards teach me about myself, and how can I sort of walk this path and, go through this journey? And your deck is so much about healing, especially with nature. So how would somebody, do you have any tips on how somebody would use the tarot for their own healing practice or their own healing journey?
For physical healing or other kinds of healing, or both?
Yeah, I would say when I think of healing, I'm thinking like emotional stuff. But
Emotionally,
of
yeah.
course, physical ties into that as well. But
I don't know that I have a specific. I feel like just using this deck or any deck, if your approach is to, I like to think of holing, WHOLING, holing and healing. So
Beautiful.
I think the whole idea of the spiritual path is to become more whole.
yes.
And healing is part of that. So I don't think I have anything specific to say about that. I feel like it's more of an approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in terms of how you connect with the cards or the messages that you're, okay.
Yeah. And like, for example, I'm always asking myself, and this is not even necessarily with the cards, but I'm always asking myself in any given situation, especially when I'm not sure what to do, or I'm upset, or I'm feeling really weak or broken, I ask myself, what would the wisest, deepest part of myself say or do in this situation? And that's often where I would pull a card. It's like, what would the wisest, deepest, most whole, most generative part of myself do here? And so that's something, I don't know, is that helpful?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I agree with that too. I think that we are whole. We're already all those things, but we've sort of built these layers throughout life to make us feel separate from that. And it's almost like we're searching for that. But if we just went deep within and reconnected to that part of us that's already that, right? Like we can live a much different life. And for me, the tarot has done that for me in terms of the messaging that I would get, how I can sort of move forward with the most support. So I love that. And your deck is so gentle and beautiful. And I can't wait till I can get to the second edition, because I'm like, oh, it's going to be soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Publication day is Monday, April 28th, at least in the States. So I'm not sure if that's the day they mail out pre-orders or they hit the bookshops. I don't know exactly. But yeah.
Now, is it being released only in the US, or the only reason I ask is because on the 28th, I know exactly where I'm going to be, and it's going to be in either the US or Canada. I'm going to be in Belgium and France. And I'm like, there's nothing I'd like better than to see it there, pick it up there and bring it home and be like, because I already have, my special limited edition giant,
that'd be awesome.
right? And I'm like, oh, if I could just have another iteration, I just may do
well, I know it's going to be released in Canada, and I thought it was also going to be released next week, but now I'm hearing that it may not be. Okay. And I don't know, I would have to ask the publisher. They have great distribution, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's going to appear in Europe, but usually it appears first in the States and then Canada and then elsewhere.
Well, you can rest assured there'll be at least one, if not a couple of metaphysical shops and bookstores that I'll pop into there. So I will keep my eye on it for sure. Joanna, are you okay? Do you have for me to ask you one more question before we kind of go into our card selection?
I'm doing great. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I is because I've obviously, been a long time follower of your work, and I'm thinking right now of the sort of journey that you have, that you're being public about in your Substack around your movement through the major arcana cards. Mm-hmm. And then but I think, everybody has their own kind of private practice, and everybody has their kind of public practice. And it to me, it seems, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems that you've made a conscious choice to at least be somewhat, and the two words that come to mind are authentic and vulnerable, actually, in some aspects of your public practice. And I'd be curious to know a little bit more about that, because I think there's one of the reasons I love reading what you write is there seems to be a real personal connection. It's like I can see the person in what they're writing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Because well, I guess I don't know exactly what you're asking me.
So I guess to me, I think, and maybe it's just, if I'm correct in that, it's almost like to somebody, and and I've met you and I know you a tiny bit, but I can imagine that the vast majority of people wouldn't know you at all, and yet it's almost like through your writing, you put a piece of yourself in that. And I guess my question is, is that a conscious choice, or is that just the quality of writing that you have, that people connect with?
Yeah. I actually think it's both, because I think that good writers, any good piece of writing is where somebody does allow themselves to be vulnerable and share their hearts. But you also have to remember that on Substack, I know some people don't like Substack, but I really love Substack. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why I love it is because it gives me the opportunity to have free subscribers and paid subscribers. Mm-hmm. So I actually think that in some of the vulnerable writing that you're talking about is behind the paywall.
Could be, yes. Okay. As I've just disclosed, that obviously now people know I'm a paid subscriber here. So
yeah, and thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what that does, and it does provide me with a nice income, which is very helpful and handy at this time in my life. But what the payment also does is only kind of hardcore fans, or I don't really like the word fans, but people who really resonate with my work are going to pay for it. The average person is not going to pay for it. So there's already a screening that happens, and that helps me to feel a little bit safer with some of the stuff that I share. But who doesn't? I just feel like, what's the point of not being vulnerable and not being authentic? Mm. The only thing is, I don't want to attract a lot of attention from trolls.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So again, that's what the paywall does.
Yeah. And we were actually talking about this just before you joined, Bonnie and I, is that we've been finding that in the true tarot community, and we've got over a dozen guests, and we're amazed, and we're talking about people who are at the like yourself, we're at the top of kind of their tarot practice. We've been talking to Sasha Graham and Mary Greer, and we've had James Wells, and Yasmin Boland was on just in our last episode. These are people who could easily be like, no, sorry, we're not interested in coming and talk. Do you know what I mean? But there is an openness and an authenticity. And we've had really, really rich conversations. And what I hear is that, when people make the selection to come into that space through what I think is an exceptionally reasonable amount of money, then it tells the creator, it says, okay, these are people who genuinely want to be here, and therefore I can feel a little bit safer inside this space. Am I hearing that correctly?
I think that's true. And I also feel like I started going to tarot conferences back in around 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. And I feel like, again, that Mary and Rachel really modeled they modeled being so open and welcoming and generous and accessible. Mm-hmm. And I have found the tarot community in general to be like that. Oh, it's like when you go into any kind of a conference or festival, people are open and welcoming, and what can I learn from you? It's like, you have as much to teach me as I have to teach you. And there's always been that feeling of reciprocity. Yeah. That's been my experience with the tarot community, both online and in person.
And humility as well, right? Because the statement that says, well, what can I learn from you? Of course, somebody like myself is going to learn from me. What on earth are you talking about? So it's fabulous. Yeah. Thank you. That was, thank you for answering my poorly worded question and verbose question, things that I do really well in both cases. But
oh, Peter, you're too hard on yourself.
Look, I'm grabbing my Gaian Tarot deck and I'm starting to shuffle it. Right now.
So at the end of each episode, Joanna, we generally pull a card, and then we sort of give our insights about what that card means for us or how that might help some other people. Would you like to join us in pulling a card? Okay, yay. Do you want to go first, or do you want one of us to go first?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. I will say that I pulled a card of the day already today, and I've been, since Rachel became an ancestor, I've been using her Shining Woman deck. So today I pulled the Speaker of Trees from her deck, which is the King of Wands, or in my deck would be the Elder of Fire. Beautiful. So for me, it's like, I'm going to be literally speaking about the trees today. So I kind of love how that worked out.
I love that.
And I love the idea of, taking on that passion and fire that you know.
It's funny, my card of the day, I usually pull 3 cards, but I got 2 cards the same in a row. And you spoke about this card earlier, the 9 of Swords.
Okay.
So the 9 of Swords visited me yesterday and it visited me today.
Okay. Well, you know what? Terrible. I did not, and I typically draw a card of the day, and it has been, I have yet to do that. So this will also be, I guess, this will count for my card of the day. All right, I'm gonna
don't every day. I'm okay with not being.
Yeah. There are some days
I'm okay with being casual.
Yep,
yeah,
I'm the same. There are some days where it's like, nah, it just didn't work. In the same way that I know full well that a hike or a workout or a row are things to do, but there are going to be some days where no, it just doesn't happen. So,
well, maybe I will go first because I pulled the sun, which I think is kind of hilarious.
I also got the sun yesterday and today.
So I feel like, so I'm like shining. I'm out in the light and I'm shining and I'm talking about the new deck and getting to hang out with you. And she's wearing a red dress, like Connie and I are wearing red. And it's very sunny out today, which makes me very happy. So beautiful. I just feel like it's all those things. It's literal and it's the energy too. So,
that's fantastic.
I love that. And it's sunny here too. Is it sunny where you are, Peter?
No, and I'm only like 15 kilometers away from where you are. And no, I mean, it's not like cloud cover. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
It's a little cloudy, but it's still like, it's not dark out. Like but
these are the gods and goddesses saying, hey, Peter, you didn't pull a card today. So no sun for you. If, I would never add to your interpretation, but I have actually a small story about your sun card.
Oh, great.
We went to a conference that was hosted by Marilyn Shannon here. So she does kind of a Tarot Lenormand conference in Kingston. And I ran into Judy Nathan. And I don't know if you remember Judy.
I do, yeah.
So the image in your sun card reminds me very much of her and her energy. So I made it a point to actually go. She was, selling her wares at the table and attending the conference, and just say, "Look, gee, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I just want to tell you that, And she said she's actually had a few people that have come up to her and told her that. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, I have some people, anyways. So
I just realized too that this is a very Canadian card because my friend that posed for me was from Vancouver.
Oh, so, there you go. See, there you go. Perfect. All right.
I love that.
Bonnie,
do you have a card?
I've drawn a card. I also drew a card from the Major Arcana. I drew the Lover's card. So, and it's so funny because, and I think I've told you I probably, I don't say memorize the guidebook, but I've read it enough times to know that I think that this is a portrayal of Beltane, which is, about to come up, right now, not far after that we're, that we're looking at that. So, I was trying to think, I'm like, well, you said, remember, and I'm like, I would have normally interpreted the card, but now I'm like, I'm really going to put myself on the spot and think, if I was going to think of a remember statement when the Lover's card came up, it might be something like, remember loving yourself is the important first step before loving anything else. Something like that.
I love that. I love that.
But
I had to look it up in the book. So what I wrote is remember, follow your heart's desire.
There you go.
But see but it could be anything, Yeah.
Well, and I'm always drawn to the duality because of its connection to Gemini and that idea. And we've talked about, other cards, Two of Cups, as an example of, of making sure that reflective love, that love for self is one of the first things that needs to happen before we extend love to somebody else. But again, right, just so people who are watching, I know that a lot of people are listening, but if you're watching, this is the beauty of these cards. So, they're gorgeous. So anyways, that's, and, the birds, I think I think they're mourning doves in the bottom and the swan in the bottom that are kind of expanding outside of the frame of the card. So,
and swans, they mate for life, right? Like, so.
I think so. I think swans are sacred to Aphrodite. So that was my main thought, that the swan is taking the place of the angel. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Bonnie,
so I don't have your deck. Wait, unfortunately, but I
No
will very
problem.
soon, and I'll let you know as soon as I get it. I'm using the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann.
Oh, I love
And
that book. Yeah.
this card that I pulled, I think is it's perfect for today because I think this is you, Joanna. It's the Queen of Pentacles.
Oh, totally. I'm a triple earth sign. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, there
okay.
you
Because
go.
I saw this,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is Joanna. You are the
That's very
quintessential
cool.
Queen of Pentacles.
Right.
That's the card I identify with for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I love
And
that.
Yeah.
and would be
So,
a guardian of Earth in the Gaian Tarot,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that. And again, we were talking, today about connecting with nature, and I see that so much in the Pentacles of like when I draw, especially the Queen or even the King, it's like, okay, Bonnie, you need to connect more with nature, like go outside. So it's funny that I asked you that question and then this card came up because that's what that really reminds me of. And it also reminds me of like abundance and compassion. And she's
Mm.
so connected to nature, but she's also very connected to like this physical life that we're living. So
Yeah.
incorporating everything that we get from and I think this is like so in alignment with what you do because it's like using that earth energy to help us live this life, this physical life that we're living. So I think that's so funny, not like funny haha, but like tarot funny that she showed up today and
I
we
love
have
that.
you as a guest. So
Totally.
That comes under the heading of you can't make this stuff up,
Totally.
right?
I say
Yeah.
that all the time.
Yeah.
We've had these kinds of moments, every time we draw a card. The other thing, though, and this is when you talk about the reciprocity of learning, there's a word that Bonnie attaches to Pentacles as well that I've since added to my, whatever you call it, I guess, my basket of interpretation, and it's gratitude. She refers to often as the Pentacles as that suit that exemplifies gratitude. So it's also being
I love that, Bonnie.
right.
Yeah.
So that Queen of Pentacles also being both that that nurturing energy and I could see how a queen or a guardian would be someone who would hold space for gratitude in that suit of Pentacles too.
Thank you, Peter. I do like
I was sure you were going to mention the word gratitude, so when you didn't, I was like,
I'm so excited I didn't. But yeah, like when I see that, it's like, pentacles, especially like, the higher ones is all about, sort of the abundance, maybe that's coming. But I always think about it as like, well, what can I appreciate right now in my life? And then that helps me create more abundance. So I do relate gratitude to the pentacles, but thanks for that reminder,
yes.
Peter.
And now I do too, right? So thank you.
I know you do too.
And now I do too.
Right, there you go. All right. So before we put an end to our episode, Joanna, is there anything that you have coming up, or even where can people find you for those who are looking to find out more about the Gaian Tarot, to find out more about either your free or paywalled work on Substack? Where might they do that?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. So there is a small website dedicated to the Gaian Tarot. So that's just GaianTarot.com. I have JoannaPowellColbert.com, and I sell prints. Like if you are attached to any certain card in the Gaian, you can buy a print of it from me. But I really would, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm kind of stepping back from. I'm there, but not so much. Instagram, and I'm trying Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is a little tough right now. Most of my energy goes to Substack. So I would love it if people came and signed up as a free subscriber. Excuse me. And if they become a paid subscriber, you get weekly posts. Free subscribers get pretty much monthly posts. And one of the fun things that we do if you're a paid subscriber is I do hold what I call a wisdom circle on Zoom once a month. And that's a way of really building community, because for me, it's always been about community.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The most recent one happened just a couple of days ago. So
It did. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you. Yeah.
Well, no, our pleasure. Thank you. And I got to welcome you. So I'm going to let Bonnie, I'm going to let her thank you.
Yes. Joanna, it has been such a pleasure to have you on our podcast. We're humbled. We're grateful. So your presence is so beautiful. You have such incredible energy. And I said this before, my heart is full. So whatever you're doing, keep doing that.
Okay.
Share what you're doing with the world. And we're so grateful to have you here. And we'd like to thank all of our listeners. We do this because we love tarot, and we would love more people to learn more about this amazing tool. So if you'd like to share, subscribe, leave us a nice comment, we would love that. And Peter and I have a brand new website, so you can check us out on tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. You can check out all our episodes there and say hi to me and Peter. So thank you for being with us today. And
Thank
we will
you for
see
having
you.
me. Yeah.
Our
Okay,
pleasure.
awesome.
Joanna. And we'll see you next time on Tarot with Bonnie and Peter.